On December 7, 1941, Japanese warplanes unleashed devastation upon Pearl Harbor, initiating a swift and aggressive expansion across the Pacific. In a matter of months, Japan's forces conquered the Philippines, Malaya, and the Dutch East Indies, driving deep into Southeast Asia and setting their sights on the South Pacific. Central to their strategy was capturing Port Moresby in New Guinea, a move that would isolate Australia and New Zealand and cement Japan's dominance in the region. The stakes for the Allies were immense. Australia and New Zealand were not only strategic strongholds, but also vital symbols of resistance against Japanese aggression. Recognizing this, the United States Navy and Royal Australian Navy began unprecedented collaboration to counter the threat, despite challenges in unifying their approaches. This conflict unfolded amidst a transformative era in naval warfare. The supremacy of battleships gave way to the rise of aircraft carriers, as vast ocean expanses became battlefields for aerial power rather than direct ship-to-ship engagements. This shift demanded innovative strategies and unyielding leadership, placing naval aviation at the forefront of the Pacific War. Japan's ambitious Operation MO aimed to secure Tulagi in the Solomon Islands as a forward base and capture Port Moresby, critical for controlling the airspace over northern Australia. Deploying a powerful fleet, including carriers Shoho, Shokaku, and Zuikaku, Japan sought to strike swiftly and decisively. However, Allied cryptographers intercepted Japanese communications, revealing the operation's details. Armed with this intelligence, Admiral Chester Nimitz dispatched Task Force 17, centered around the carriers USS Lexington and USS Yorktown, to confront the advancing Japanese fleet. The Coral Sea, with its scattered islands and strategic positioning, became the chosen arena for a battle that would test a new era of naval tactics. The coordination between American and Australian forces proved challenging, with differences in strategy and the untested nature of carrier warfare. Yet, their shared determination to halt Japan's advance forged an alliance prepared to face an unprecedented confrontation. As dawn broke in early May 1942, tension gripped the Coral Sea. Naval forces maneuvered unseen across vast waters, guided by reconnaissance and strategy. For the first time in history, two fleets prepared for a battle dictated entirely by air power, where adversaries would engage without ever coming into direct sight. The stage was set for a battle that would not only redefine naval warfare, but also shape the future of the Pacific theater. The Battle of the Coral Sea was about to begin, heralding a new chapter in the history of conflict. In early 1942, Japan's Imperial Navy advanced its plans for Operation MO, a carefully orchestrated strategy to dominate the South Pacific. The operation targeted Port Moresby in New Guinea and Tulagi in the Solomon Islands. Capturing Port Moresby would grant Japan critical air superiority over northern Australia, while Tulagi, as a forward base, would bolster reconnaissance and future expansion. Vice Admiral Shigeyoshi Inoue led this ambitious operation with a formidable Fourth Fleet. His forces included carriers Shoho, Shokaku, and Zuikaku, supported by cruisers, destroyers, and transport vessels carrying troops bound for New Guinea. Japan's confidence, fueled by their unbroken chain of victories since Pearl Harbor, seemed unshakable. However, Allied cryptographers in Hawaii intercepted and deciphered Japanese communications, exposing the details of Operation MO. This intelligence breakthrough gave the Allies a crucial advantage. Admiral Chester Nimitz, understanding the high stakes, deployed Task Force 17 under Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher. The task force, featuring the carriers USS Lexington and USS Yorktown, had a clear mission: disrupt the Japanese offensive and neutralize their carrier fleet. Though outnumbered and facing a highly experienced enemy, Fletcher's fleet prepared for a decisive confrontation. Navigating the Coral Sea presented its own challenges. The region's reefs and uncharted shoals tested even-seasoned sailors, while storms and limited visibility compounded the risks. Yet, the stakes were too high to falter. Securing the Coral Sea would not only protect vital shipping lanes between the U.S. and Australia, but also preserve the flow of reinforcements and supplies critical to the war effort. Collaboration between American and Australian forces, though essential, was not without friction. Divergent military doctrines and communication barriers led to tension, with Australians pushing for swift action to protect their homeland, while Americans, still recovering from Pearl Harbor, proceeded cautiously. Nevertheless, shared resolve united the two forces in the face of an unprecedented challenge. As the Japanese fleet advanced, Allied reconnaissance intensified. Patrol planes and submarines scoured the Coral Sea, piecing together fragmented intelligence. The fog of war persisted, with misidentifications and delays in reporting creating uncertainty. By May, both fleets maneuvered into position, guided by incomplete information and strategic intuition. For the first time, opposing carrier groups were poised to clash without coming into visual contact. The battle would be fought entirely by aircraft, marking a revolutionary shift in naval warfare. This unprecedented confrontation would test the limits of strategy and resolve. As the sun set on the eve of battle, tension rippled through the Allied fleet. Sailors and pilots prepared themselves for what lay ahead, aware they stood at a pivotal moment in history. The Battle of the Coral Sea was about to begin, a clash of empires that would shape the future of the Pacific. The tension in the Coral Sea erupted into conflict on May 3, 1942, as Japanese forces launched their first offensive by seizing Tulagi and the Solomon Islands. The swift and efficient amphibious assault quickly established Japanese control over the island. Tulagi's strategic position, ideal for a seaplane base, enhanced Japan's ability to conduct reconnaissance and support naval operations. Though a tactical success, this move did not escape the Allies' notice. Allied reconnaissance planes tracked the Japanese fleet, relaying crucial intelligence to Task Force 17. Recognizing the urgency, Admiral Fletcher ordered immediate action. On May 4th, aircraft from USS Yorktown launched daring strikes against Japanese forces at Tulagi. Dive bombers and torpedo planes inflicted significant damage, sinking several smaller ships and scattering the enemy fleet. Although Tulagi remained under Japanese control, the raids underscored the power of carrier-based aviation and disrupted Japan's momentum. As the Japanese regrouped, the battle shifted into a tense waiting game. Neither side had located the other's main fleet, with reconnaissance becoming the linchpin of the unfolding conflict. Skirmishes and airstrikes continued sporadically, but gaps in intelligence and delayed reports left commanders on both sides navigating with incomplete information. By May 5th and 6th, the Japanese invasion force moved closer to its ultimate target, Port Moresby. Both fleets intensified their search for the enemy, dispatching patrol aircraft across the Coral Sea. The vast ocean buzzed with activity as scout planes reported sightings, creating a charged atmosphere. Pilots prepared for imminent action, aware of the stakes hanging in the balance. The first significant engagement occurred on May 7th. Japanese scouts mistakenly identified a group of Allied oilers and escort ships as the main American carrier force. Acting on this misjudgment, Japanese bombers launched a full-scale attack, sinking the fleet oiler Neosho and its escort destroyer Sims. Though a tactical success, this error left the true American carriers unscathed, preserving their ability to strike back. Meanwhile, American reconnaissance pinpointed the location of the Japanese light carrier Shoho. Seizing the moment, Admiral Fletcher launched a coordinated air assault. Aircraft from USS Lexington and USS Yorktown descended upon Shoho, navigating through intense anti-aircraft fire. The attack was devastatingly effective. Bombs and torpedoes tore through the carrier, leaving it ablaze. Within minutes, Shoho sank, marking the first major Japanese carrier loss of the war. The destruction of Shoho electrified Allied forces, with a jubilant pilot famously signaling, "Scratch one flat top." This decisive blow boosted morale, but did not diminish the challenge ahead. The remaining Japanese fleet, though weakened, retained considerable strength. As night fell on May 7th, Both sides prepared for the next phase of the battle, aware that the outcome could alter the course of the Pacific War. As dawn broke on May 8, 1942, over the Coral Sea, both fleets braced for the climactic confrontation. The sinking of Shoho and the previous day's intense skirmishes left both sides eager to deliver a decisive blow. The day would prove to be a watershed moment in naval warfare, defined by relentless air combat and strategic ingenuity. The skies erupted with activity as American F-4F Wildcats engaged Japanese Mitsubishi A-6M-Zeros. The Wildcats, slower and less agile than the Zeros, compensated with durability and disciplined teamwork. American pilots, adapting to the Zero's strengths, used coordinated tactics to level the playing field. The resulting dogfights unfolded as lethal aerial duels, each pilot fighting with extraordinary skill and determination. Amid the aerial chaos, American dive bombers and torpedo planes targeted the Japanese invasion fleet. Aircraft launched from USS Yorktown and USS Lexington aimed to disrupt Japanese supply lines and destroy transports crucial to the advance on Port Moresby. Bombs tore through Japanese ships, igniting flames and sending columns of smoke into the sky. Despite fierce resistance from anti-aircraft guns, the attacks forced several vessels to withdraw. The Japanese countered with equal ferocity. Air squadrons from Shokaku and Zikaku focused their assault on the American carriers. Waves of bombers and torpedo planes surged toward Lexington and Yorktown, braving a hailstorm of anti-aircraft fire. The American escort ships fought valiantly to shield the carriers, but some strikes penetrated their defenses. Yorktown sustained a direct hit that ripped through her flight deck, triggering a massive explosion. Damage control teams worked tirelessly to extinguish fires and stabilize the ship. Meanwhile, Lexington, known affectionately as Lady Lex, suffered multiple torpedo hits, causing her to list dangerously. Her crew, demonstrating remarkable resilience, managed temporary repairs to keep her in action. Both sides exhibited extraordinary resolve. Japanese pilots, braving intense anti-aircraft fire, returned to their carriers to rearm for additional sorties, while American crews fought to maintain their damaged ships. The sheer intensity of the battle pushed men and machines to their limits, with the outcome teetering on a knife's edge. As the day wore on, both fleets assessed their positions. The Americans succeeded in disrupting Japanese operations and inflicting critical damage on their fleet, but the cost was high. Lexington was severely compromised, and Yorktown bore heavy scars. For the Japanese, the loss of Shoho and the damage sustained by their invasion force raised doubts about the success of their campaign. Despite these losses, both sides remained determined. The sailors and airmen on each fleet prepared for what they knew would be another grueling day of combat. For those in the Coral Sea, this was more than a battle for territory. It was a struggle for survival and the future of the Pacific Theater. The dawn of May 8, 1942, arrived with an air of grim determination. Both fleets, battered yet resolute, were poised for the decisive exchange. The first daylight engagement in naval history, fought entirely by aircraft carriers, was about to reach its crescendo. On this fateful day, the fate of the Coral Sea, and perhaps the South Pacific, would be decided. At the heart of the battle were the carriers Lexington and Yorktown, standing against the formidable Japanese Shokaku and Zikaku. By early morning, scout planes from both sides had confirmed the positions of their adversaries. Orders were given, and squadrons of dive bombers, torpedo planes, and fighters launched into the skies, their engines roaring with purpose. The American pilots, fueled by the previous day's success against Shoho, carried a renewed sense of confidence. Their target was Shokaku, one of Japan's most powerful fleet carriers. Coordinated waves of dauntless dive bombers and devastator torpedo planes descended upon the vessel. The Japanese, aware of the impending danger, mounted a fierce defense. Anti-aircraft guns peppered the sky with explosions, and Zero fighters swarmed to intercept the attackers. Despite the resistance, the American air crews displayed remarkable precision. Several bombs struck Shokaku, tearing through her flight deck and igniting massive fires. The carrier, crippled and listing, was forced to withdraw from the battle. However, Zuikaku, shrouded in a veil of low-hanging clouds, managed to evade detection, preserving her ability to strike back. Meanwhile, the Japanese launched their counteroffensive with equal ferocity. Torpedo bombers and dive bombers from Zuikaku surged toward the American fleet. Their primary target was the venerable Lexington. The carrier, already bearing the scars of previous engagements, became the focus of relentless Japanese attacks. Despite the valiant efforts of her defensive guns in escorting Wildcats, Lexington was struck by multiple torpedoes and bombs. The hits triggered a chain reaction, resulting in explosions that rocked the vessel. Damage control teams worked tirelessly to stabilize Lexington, and for a time, it seemed the carrier might survive. Yet, deep within her hull, fuel vapors ignited, causing a catastrophic blast. Flames engulfed the ship, and Admiral Fletcher made the difficult decision to abandon her. The crew, demonstrating extraordinary discipline under fire, evacuated the ship. Lexington, a stalwart of the Pacific Fleet, slipped beneath the waves, taking with her the sacrifices and heroism of her men. Nearby, Yorktown also bore the brunt of the Japanese assault. A bomb pierced her deck, but the damage was contained. Her crew, battle-hardened and resourceful, kept the carrier operational, ensuring that she could continue to contribute to the fight. The survival of Yorktown was a testament to the resilience of the American Navy. As the day wore on, both sides grappled with the toll of the conflict. Japanese losses included Shoho and the effective disabling of Shokaku, while the Americans mourned the loss of Lexington. Yet, the battle's strategic implications extended far beyond these immediate casualties. The Japanese invasion fleet, deprived of air cover and facing mounting losses, began to retreat. The Allied forces had achieved their primary objective, halting Japan's southward push toward Port Moresby. The second day of the Battle of the Coral Sea was a harrowing testament to the changing nature of naval warfare. It marked the first instance in which opposing fleets fought without direct visual contact, relying entirely on aircraft to project their power. The lessons learned in these chaotic, high-stakes engagements would shape the tactics and strategies of future battles. As night fell, the skies over the Coral Sea grew quiet. The men aboard the remaining ships reflected on the sacrifices of the day, aware that their actions had altered the course of history. For the Allies, the battle was a costly yet pivotal victory, one that would lay the groundwork for the triumphs to come. For the Japanese, it was a sobering reminder of the challenges that lay ahead in their quest for dominance. As the smoke cleared over the Coral Sea on May 8, 1942, the battle's intensity refused to wane. The Allies and Japanese forces regrouped and prepared for what both sides believed would be the decisive phase of the engagement. With Shoho destroyed and Shokaku severely damaged, the Japanese fleet's offensive capability had been dealt a significant blow, but the resilient Zuikaku remained a potent threat. For the Americans, the loss of Lexington and the damage to Yorktown underscored the high stakes of the confrontation. Key to the Allies' strategy was the vital role of reconnaissance. In the early hours, U.S. intelligence deciphered Japanese communications suggesting a final push toward Port Moresby. Armed with this information, Admiral Fletcher ordered his remaining forces to intercept and disrupt the advancing Japanese fleet. It was a calculated risk, relying on coordination between air and naval assets under increasingly strained resources. The turning point of the battle came with an audacious American airstrike. Pilots from Yorktown launched a daring assault on the retreating Shokaku. The wounded carrier, struggling to maintain its defensive posture, became a vulnerable target. As dive bombers approached in tight formations, Japanese anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky, creating a perilous gauntlet. Despite this, the Americans executed their attack with precision, delivering multiple direct hits that left Shokaku aflame and listing heavily. Simultaneously, torpedo planes targeted the Japanese transport ships attempting to reinforce their forward positions. The destruction of these supply vessels proved decisive, severing the logistical lifeline needed to sustain the Japanese invasion of Port Moresby. As the transports sank one by one, the Japanese realized their plans for a southern advance had been irreparably compromised. The role of Allied coordination was crucial in these moments. Australian forces, working alongside the U.S. Navy, provided critical reconnaissance support and logistical aid, ensuring the continuity of the offensive. Communication, while occasionally hindered by technological and doctrinal differences, had vastly improved since the beginning of the campaign. This cooperation highlighted the growing synergy between Allied forces, setting the stage for future joint operations in the Pacific theater. By late afternoon, the Japanese command faced an inescapable reality. Their losses had mounted to an unsustainable level, and their carriers were no longer capable of providing the air cover necessary to protect their remaining forces. Orders were given for a general withdrawal, marking the end of Japan's ambitious Operation MO. For the Allies, the victory was both a strategic triumph and a morale booster. The threat to Australia had been averted, and the Japanese advance had been halted for the first time in the war. Yet, the cost of the success was sobering. The loss of Lexington and the damage to Yorktown served as reminders of the fragility of naval power in this new era of warfare. As the fleets withdrew under the darkening skies, the men who had fought in the Coral Sea reflected on their achievements. The battle was a watershed moment, demonstrating the strategic and tactical importance of carrier-based operations. For the first time, the balance of power in the Pacific had begun to shift, laying the groundwork for the pivotal engagements that lay ahead. As May 9, 1942, dawned over the Coral Sea, the battered remnants of both fleets prepared for the battle's closing stages. For the Japanese, the realization that their plans for Port Moresby were unraveling came with a mix of frustration and desperation. Admiral Shigeyoshi in no way issued orders for a strategic withdrawal, hoping to preserve what remained of his fleet. Yet the Americans, buoyed by their successes, were determined to press the advantage. The retreating Japanese forces faced relentless pressure from American air power. U.S. pilots, operating from Yorktown and land-based Australian airfields, launched a series of punishing strikes against the enemy. Torpedo planes and dive bombers targeted Japanese cruisers and destroyers, inflicting additional damage. The air crews, though weary, exhibited remarkable precision and courage, braving fierce anti-aircraft fire to complete their missions. The loss of Lexington weighed heavily on the American sailors, but their determination to honor the sacrifices of their comrades spurred them forward. The Lady Lex, once a symbol of American naval might, now lay at the bottom of the Coral Sea. Her sinking underscored the high cost of the battle, yet it also galvanized the surviving forces to ensure that her loss was not in vain. In one of the final engagements, U.S. aircraft intercepted a Japanese convoy attempting to regroup near the northern edge of the Coral Sea. The ensuing attack was devastating, with several transport ships destroyed and others forced to scatter. This strike effectively sealed the fate of Japan's Operation MO, leaving the invasion force without the necessary resources to continue. The emotions among the American sailors and pilots were a mix of triumph and somber reflection. On board Yorktown, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage sustained during the battle. Their efforts ensured the carrier remained operational, a critical asset in the Pacific theater. The ship's survival symbolized the resilience and ingenuity of the U.S. Navy in the face of adversity. As the Japanese fleet slipped out of the Coral Sea, the battle drew to a close. The Allies had achieved a strategic victory, halting Japan's southward advance and safeguarding the vital supply lines to Australia. Yet, the cost had been significant. More than 500 American lives were lost, and the naval balance in the Pacific remained precariously fragile. For the Japanese, the battle was a stark reminder of the challenges they faced. Though their fleet had survived, the loss of Shoho, the crippling of Shokaku, and the failure to secure Port Moresby marked a turning point. The Imperial Navy, long regarded as an unstoppable force, had been dealt its first major setback. The Battle of the Coral Sea ended not with a decisive final blow, but with the quiet retreat of one fleet and the cautious consolidation of the other. Yet, its significance reverberated far beyond the waters of the South Pacific. For the first time in the war, Japan's expansion had been stopped, proving that the tide of battle could indeed be turned. The Battle of the Coral Sea marked a seismic shift in the dynamics of the Pacific War. For the Allies, it was the first significant step in stemming the tide of Japanese aggression, a victory that offered hope amidst the darkness of early defeats. For Japan, it represented a sobering moment, exposing the vulnerabilities of their grand strategy and setting the stage for future challenges. One of the most critical outcomes of the battle was the preservation of Port Moresby. Had the Japanese succeeded in capturing this vital outpost, the Allies would have faced a significant threat to Australia. The invasion of Port Moresby was a cornerstone of Japan's strategy to dominate the South Pacific and sever Allied supply lines. By thwarting this plan, the Allies maintained a crucial link between Australia and the broader Pacific theater, ensuring that the region could continue to serve as a launch pad for counteroffensives. The battle also demonstrated the growing importance of naval aviation. Both sides relied heavily on their aircraft carriers to project power across the vast expanses of the Pacific. The success of American airstrikes against Shokaku and the destruction of Shoho underscored the strategic potential of carrier-based operations. Conversely, the Japanese experienced firsthand the limitations of traditional fleet tactics in an era increasingly dominated by air power. In the aftermath of the battle, both sides reassessed their strategies. For the Americans, the Coral Sea proved the value of intelligence and inter-service coordination. The work of codebreakers at Station HYPO had been instrumental in uncovering Japanese intentions, allowing Admiral Nimitz and his commanders to position their forces effectively. This success would pave the way for even greater intelligence victories, notably the decisive ambush at Midway just weeks later. Japan's failure to secure a decisive victory in the Coral Sea forced a re-evaluation of their expansionist ambitions. The loss of Shoho and the damage to Shokaku weakened their carrier fleet, diminishing their ability to dominate the Pacific. While they retained formidable strength, the psychological impact of the battle on Japanese leadership was profound. Confidence in the invincibility of the Imperial Navy began to waver, planting the seeds of doubt that would grow in subsequent engagements. The Battle of the Coral Sea also had a profound effect on the morale of both sides. For the Allies, it was a much-needed boost, demonstrating that the Japanese juggernaut could be resisted. The bravery of the sailors, airmen, and soldiers who fought in the battle inspired a renewed sense of determination among Allied forces. For the Japanese, the battle served as a stark reminder that their opponents were not to be underestimated. The losses sustained in the Coral Sea foreshadowed the challenges they would face as the war dragged on. Perhaps the most significant strategic implication of the Coral Sea was its impact on the Battle of Midway. The damage inflicted on Japan's carriers and the loss of experienced air crews deprived the Imperial Navy of critical assets that could have turned the tide at Midway. In this sense, the Coral Sea was not just a standalone battle, but a pivotal moment in a larger campaign, shaping the course of the Pacific War and the broader struggle for control of the seas. The Battle of the Coral Sea was more than a military engagement. It was a crucible of lessons for both the Allies and the Japanese, reshaping naval strategy and redefining the nature of warfare in the Pacific. As the waters of the Coral Sea calmed, the profound implications of this clash began to emerge, offering insights that would guide future campaigns and alter the trajectory of World War II. The most pivotal lesson for the Allies was the indispensable role of intelligence. The success of U.S. codebreakers in deciphering Japanese communications provided an early warning of the enemy's intentions. By intercepting and interpreting Japanese plans, the Allies were able to position their forces effectively, ensuring that the ambush in the Coral Sea disrupted Operation MO. This victory underscored the critical importance of signals intelligence and established a template for future successes, including the monumental triumph at Midway. For the Japanese, the battle exposed the limitations of their approach to naval warfare. While their carrier forces demonstrated tactical brilliance, the reliance on rigid and hierarchical command structures often hampered adaptability. The failure to anticipate the resilience of Allied forces and the underestimation of the U.S. Navy's capabilities revealed a strategic blind spot. This miscalculation would become more pronounced as the war progressed, leading to devastating consequences in subsequent battles. The battle also highlighted the strengths and vulnerabilities of carrier-based warfare. Both sides learned that the carrier was not only a powerful offensive tool, but also a fragile and high-value asset. The loss of Shoho and the damage to Shokaku showcased the vulnerability of these floating airfields to concentrated air attacks. Similarly, the sinking of Lexington illustrated the critical need for improved damage control procedures and the resilience of carrier strike groups. These lessons would shape the design and tactics of naval aviation for the remainder of the war. Managing multinational forces emerged as another key challenge for the Allies. Coordination between the U.S. Navy and the Royal Australian Air Force, though ultimately successful, revealed difficulties in aligning objectives and ensuring seamless communication. The battle demonstrated the necessity of unified command structures and clear lines of communication, setting the stage for more cohesive Allied operations in the Pacific. Perhaps most profoundly, the psychological impact of the Coral Sea engagement reverberated far beyond the battlefield. For the Allies, it was a morale booster, a proof that the seemingly invincible Japanese Navy could be challenged and defeated. The bravery of sailors and airmen, combined with the strategic foresight of commanders, inspired a renewed sense of purpose and determination. For the Japanese, the battle introduced a sobering reality. The path to victory in the Pacific would be far more arduous than anticipated. The sense of invulnerability that had fueled their early conquests began to erode. The Coral Sea taught both sides that victory in the Pacific would require more than superior firepower. It demanded adaptability, innovation, and an unrelenting commitment to outmaneuver the enemy. These lessons would resonate through every subsequent engagement, shaping the strategies that defined the remainder of the war. The Battle of the Coral Sea left an indelible mark on the trajectory of World War II, carving its place in history as the first major check on Japanese expansion and a turning point in the Pacific theater. This confrontation not only safeguarded key Allied territories, but also reshaped the strategic landscape, setting the stage for future victories. The most immediate legacy of the battle was the successful defense of Port Moresby, halting Japan's southward advance and ensuring the safety of Australia and New Zealand. By thwarting Operation MO, the Allies preserved critical supply routes and protected the southern flank of the Pacific theater. For the first time in the war, Japanese forces were forced to abandon a major strategic initiative, marking a shift in the balance of power. This battle was also a pivotal moment in the evolution of naval warfare. The emphasis on carrier-based air power demonstrated in the Coral Sea would dominate the remainder of the war. The success and vulnerabilities revealed by the use of carriers pushed both the U.S. and Japan to refine their strategies and tactics. For the U.S. Navy, this meant an increased focus on carrier group cohesion, damage control, and coordinated airstrikes, lessons that would prove decisive at Midway and beyond. The Coral Sea also had profound implications for the broader war effort. The damage inflicted on the Japanese carriers Shokaku and Zuikaku significantly weakened their presence at Midway, depriving the Imperial Japanese Navy of two vital assets. This strategic weakening directly contributed to the monumental American victory at Midway, which would decisively turn the tide of the Pacific War in favor of the Allies. On a human level, the battle became a source of inspiration and a testament to resilience and sacrifice. Stories of heroism from sailors, aviators, and support crews circulated among the Allied forces, fostering a renewed sense of determination. Memorials and commemorations were later established to honor the brave individuals who participated in this defining moment, ensuring their contributions were remembered for generations. For Australia and New Zealand, the Coral Sea became a symbol of Allied solidarity and the strength of international cooperation. The defense of these nations reinforced their integral role in the war effort and deepened their ties with the United States, laying the foundation for lasting alliances that would shape post-war geopolitics. The broader historical impact of the Coral Sea extended beyond the immediate wartime context. It demonstrated the growing importance of air superiority and technological innovation in modern conflict. The lessons learned from this battle informed not only the remainder of World War II, but also the development of naval strategies and technologies in the decades that followed. In the end, the Battle of the Coral Sea was more than just a clash of fleets. It was a turning point that altered the course of history. It showcased the courage and ingenuity of the Allied forces, heralded the rise of carrier warfare, and marked the beginning of the end for Japanese expansion in the Pacific. Its legacy is a testament to the resilience and strategic foresight that defined the Allied victory in World War II, forever cementing its place in the annals of military history.